Hey everyone, welcome to Camppatton Family Compound. Uh, Tonight is the Monday night fireside chat, and tonight's topic is the truth beneath raised planter beds. And let's go over here. Got a very special guest here, Ron here, the Green Wizard. I was hoping Courtney was going to make it in here, and I sent a special invitation out there to Bruce at Backwoods Law because they just moved to Tennessee, and they're both retired, and he has some other problems that makes him want to stand up, and his wife wants to stand up, so they're going to be doing raised planter beds, and hope to get them in here so they can ask questions, and then we could go ahead and get a good panel here, but I'm not sure whether or not Courtney's going to make it. I sent it to her in several ways, so anyways, first of all, let's say hi to everybody that's in here. We have Rebel Canners. How you doing, Tammy? And then Ray at Fat Man Prepper, and I think he might still be live over on his channel broadcasting the count from Canada on the confidence, no confidence vote for the Emergency Powers Act up there. That's all the politics we're going to talk. Kaylin Strain is here. And Ron, of course, is saying hi to everybody. We got, I'm going to mispronounce this, I know. Hero Brian, King Knives is here. And Shift Kicker's in the house, hey. Lewis is in the house. Cecilia, Raven Cat Homestead is here. Scroll on down here. Katie DePro Spirit Riding Free is here. Joe, Garden State Gardener is here. Hey. Oh, I froze, sorry. Alicia DePro Artisan Mom is here. And the Artistic Prepper is here. Prep for Eternity Homestead. Hey, Preacher, how's it going? Oh, nope. He's, I guess Fat Man said, nope, he's not. Canada passed it. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I did that wrong. Take that. Come on. I need to. There we go. Yeah, Canada passed it. Oh, no. Freaky Geek is here. Mary Beth Smith is here. Christy Betts is here. Jen Penland is here. Shady Hill Homestead's here. And I'm caught up. I'll probably have a few more coming in here. All right. Okay, so just so before we jump into this, I want to talk about my experiences growing with raised planter beds. No, these are not my raised planter beds behind me. My knees still can't take that low of a planter bed. Hey, Tim. Got Tim Fergal here. Oh, he says the Senate will need to vote on it as well. Okay. Gear Grinding 19, how's it going? All right. So when I grew up, we had an acre and a quarter. I would probably say at least a half of it was for the animals, for the horses, the cows, the pigs, chickens, and stuff like that. And so everything else was in ground. That's the way my grandmother grew up. She was born in 1899 up on by Coeur d'Alene. And everything was in the ground. Then we moved back down to Southern California in 1966. Everything was still in the ground at the first place we lived at. A couple of years later, we moved over to by my grandfather's catering company. And my mom started putting things in a couple of pots. Namely, she wanted a fig tree. Since it was a rental property, couldn't plant a fig tree, so she planted one in a big pot. And so fig and and she tried several times to plant it, grow an avocado. Then we moved to Arizona, the north rim of the Grand Canyon. And she had several more things in pots. And because it's extremely cold winters up there at 7,000 foot elevation, she put more things in pots. So in the wintertime, we stacked bales of hay around it, built a little greenhouse out of bales of hay, and had some lights in there to keep the stuff from freezing. Moved back to Northern California. And that's when all of a sudden there was down the road from us was a winery. All of a sudden, here's all these wine barrels available. And my mom wanted to be decorative and started planting stuff in wine barrels. What we didn't know was all the stuff Ron here is going to talk about.
What?
Soil, the food lab, raising healthy soil and stuff. And Alicia, I will come back to that question here in a minute. So, my mom grew a lot of stuff, and one of the things she wound up with a couple of orange trees. And even in a half 55-gallon barrel, this tree was, still producing big oranges. They were delicious. But as the tree grew, it depleted the soil in that pot. And my mom was constantly trying to add stuff to it. And, she'd get me and my brother out there, and we would turn it on its side, slowly pull it out a little bit, put a strap under it, pick it up, and she'd put a bunch more soil underneath of it, and we'd lower it back in and she'd try feed it and stuff. And after she passed away, my wife said, I want that tree. Well, we brought it to our house, had me dig a hole, put it in the ground, and a year it went from about, I could put my arms out around, touch either side of it. It was kind of like a little bushy. It was supposed to be an ultra dwarf orange tree. All of a sudden, it was 3 times the size, and the oranges were half again as big. Still just as delicious and everything, but once it was in the ground, it went absolutely nuts. And as of last year, it is about 15 feet tall and about 8 foot diameter on it at least, and produces the most fantastic oranges. So much better in the ground. And so there's, anti-froze. So there's a difference between a raised planter bed and a pot. Now, my mom, we actually put in some raised planter beds for my mom. And fortunately for that, there was no bottom in those raised planter beds. They were on the ground. Unfortunately, the area where she had us put it in had about 18 inches of soil before it got to sandstone. That part of the property was a part of the flowing sandstone shelf there. And so, we were always hauling up cow manure and stuff from the cows and the chickens and stuff and feeding it. But I'm not going to go into how bad or good it was. Sometimes there was really good stuff coming out of it. Other times we knew there was something it needed, and my mom didn't like to do the chemicals, but she kept on getting like the adding nitrogen stuff to it. And it just, every now and then the worms would explode in there and everything going right. Finally, my mom stopped adding the chemicals and just started composting everything into the garden. Okay. All righty. So before we go on to this, I want to answer a question going back up here. What are good starter foods for someone without a green thumb to start growing? Well, it depends. I know one of the things that I planted here that just absolutely went bonkers on me was rainbow chard. The rainbow chard did absolutely fantastic. Basil here did absolutely fantastic. The borage here, when I planted borage next to tomato plants, went, and the bees were very happy. But I unfortunately, I haven't learned enough to use the borage for the other municipal purposes you can use it for. Tomatoes, depending on the type of tomato you get, and make sure how you prep the soil, tomatoes can grow easily, or they can, and that's it.
Well, they'll tell you more about the soil conditions than any other plant.
Yeah.
They respond more quickly.
And so, folks in the side chat, okay, Christy Bett says, beans are easy. King Poopa's in here. Hey, Dustin. Hey, Dustin, tell your wife to get up here, huh? Yeah, Swiss chard, rainbow chard, same family, just a little bit different. Swiss chard's all green. Rainbow chard, you come up with orange, red, very colorful stems, and you still green on this on most of the for most of the leaf part, but the stalks and stuff are very colorful. Okay, Tim says. So, cilantro is easy and comes back. I would probably say the easiest thing, of course, also depends on the region, whether or not they have squash bugs, but zucchini. In Northern California and up here, zucchini goes absolutely friggin' nuts up here in Idaho. I mean, if you don't keep an eye on the zucchini, what that little one about this long, I'll harvest that in a day. You forget about it. All of a sudden, it's now, 12 inches long. All of a sudden, it's 24 inches long. Zucchini just grows nuts, and it's easy. You can't hardly kill. There's zucchini, patty pan squash. Squashes grow pretty easy, a lot easier than pumpkins do. Yeah. So, Ron, any suggestions on, some foods that might be good, some food plants that might be good for someone who's.
Well, it's your dietary needs as well. Just like we're dealing with this situation, you need to think about plants that are going to be healthier for you, give you vitamin C, give you vitamin D, what have you. Garlic is another one of the good ones that is great for fending off sicknesses, what have you. And that's a do nothing plant. That's a bulb. You stick it in the ground and forget about it.
Yeah.
If you get it this year, great. If you don't, you're going to have twice as many, if not 5 times as many next year. It's just one of those plants. Yeah. So it's all in your dietary needs. It's what you're needing more so than what you can grow. As far as being a green thumb or a brown thumb, it's all in what you know. It's all in what you learn. My nature's gardening method, you don't need to know anything. You just follow along the guide and stand back. You don't work the garden. You don't weed it. You don't nothing. You just let Mother Nature do her thing. You get a few weeds here and there, but for the most part, you're not out there on a nightly basis having to pull weeds that show up because you choke them all off. You kill them all naturally with natural boosts of nitrogen in the end.
Yeah.
It's all in your diet. It's time. What kind of time do you have? Do you want plants that you've got to train to run up vines? Are you going to instantly dive into the 3 sister method and start growing corn and then peas with it so that it grows up the corn stalks? And I mean, that's a huge question. I would say start small. Get your fingers dirty, in essence. Get in there, clean the soils. We're talking about raised beds and brand new soils that you're going to be bringing in from elsewhere. Grow some sunflowers. Yeah. Get that soil cleaned up. Make sure it's safe. Get the heavy metals out. The sunflowers will do that for you. And sunflower is just another one of those hardy plants. If it's got enough water, it's just a hardy plant that will take off.
Yeah. Last year, my mom had some sunflower plants in the front yard there that got up over 12 feet tall.
Oh, I've seen them.
Those suckers were about that big around at the base.
Yeah, so, they can get huge.
Yeah. All right.
Food Forest, Mr. Howie. What's going on, my friend?
Hey. Okay, so I'm going to drop this in here, Howie. If you want to come up here, Howie.
We're talking raised beds, huviculture, and what have you.
All right,
raised beds.
There's the link, Howie. So if you want to come up here, I want to ask Alicia asked, does zucchini like the heat?
Yes, but it needs water.
Yeah, exactly. So long as it has water, it'll take the hottest day we ever had there in California, and big leaves.
It'll go like mad.
And the problem is, if you have good soil, plenty of water, you have to go out there and hunt for your zucchini. because if you miss it there, like I said, all of a sudden it goes, whoop, and it's, in a day and a half, it's suddenly huge. Hey, Diggs Outdoors, how's it going? And just catching up, make sure I'm not missing any questions here before I dive into some of these photos here. Oh, my pole beans choked out my corn and the Three Sisters deal.
Oh, wow. I believe it.
The soil must have been perfect for the beans then. Okay, so let's go back over here to this, and I'm going to talk about some of these as we go along. Now, raised planter beds and stuff, one of the things you have to realize, first thing I'm going to point out is you don't have to spend a lot of money to make a raised planter bed. You can get by building it, all right? So we're gonna come back to this photo later on, talk a little bit more about it. But
yeah, this one bothers me.
Yeah, me too. Now, it's so beautiful. And look at that. They got the nice boards there up on top of the rock. Problem is, looking at this, I'd be willing to bet that under the rock, and for the most part, they have weed blocker. Which means, and if you look at, these are 2x6s, and the soil inside is maybe, so you got 2x6s are actually 5.5 inches. So the line right here, my cursor is moving there. So down to the first board, below that is only 11.5 inches. You can see that's about how full they have it on the inside there. So it only has about 11.5 inches of soil, and then it hits the rock. Now, I would be willing to bet dollars to donuts they put blocker in the blocker in the bottom of it to keep the soil from washing out as well into the rock. So the roots of these plants are missing out. What are they missing out on, Ron?
Everything. They're not going to get the depth. They're not going to get the minerals. They're going to be stuck with what they've got. They're not going to get the aeration that worms would naturally bring in. And like Howie's saying, when you're in there doing this, you're not building soil. If you're doing a hugelkultur mound and you're connected to the earth, you've got Mother Nature coming in there, building the soil, breaking down all of your logs, your twigs, your leaves, your compost, what have you. And everything is doing it Mother Nature's way. And it's going to expand exponentially and do 10 times better than this. This is going to these plants are going to suck everything out of that soil it can potentially get if it survives at all. And then the soil is going to be dead next year. And that's the thing, people don't think about. Well, what about next year? Well, when you build this the first year, think about the following year. Don't think about this year. This year, that every plant you put in there is probably going to explode because depending on where you get your soil from, there's all sorts of unknowns in that soil that may be there for production purposes just to get you to buy that soil. A lot of these store-bought soils have these chemicals mixed into it like, oh my God, name it. It doesn't even matter. It's going to be a chemical that's going to make these plants explode, and you're going to think, wow, they've got the best soil. And they don't. It's actually just a chemical preservative, basically, making this thing do something. Yeah. And it's not going to last.
I like to call it an artificial plant steroid.
Basically.
Yeah. All right. So the next one here, another one that makes us cringe. All right. This is not a bad idea, except for one big friggin' problem. The weed blocker in the bottom. You're cutting it off from its major nutrition source. Some of my tomato plants, when we've dug them out just to find out how when my wife and I were trying to figure out how deep did the roots go on a tomato plant afterwards. And we dug down and they went down about 3 feet. These looks more like a 2x10 possibly.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, it looks like a 2x10 so what they're using here. Maybe a 2x8. So yeah, it's probably 2x10 because it's coming up on this knees and stuff. That's not enough soil. It ain't gonna cut it. It's
gonna work well for 1 year, one season. Yeah. That's it. You're done.
Yeah. All right. This one's a little bit better. What do you like about it, Ron?
This is far, far better. It's got it's keyhole is what they call this. This is a keyhole raised bed, giving you easier access all the way around. It's got its pluses and its minuses. You know, one of the things you got to think about when you're going to be doing this kind of raised bed is your frost table, when it's going to freeze and how deep the frost goes, because you really don't want this thing to freeze if at all possible. I know that's kind of hard, and it's a mental thing, but it would be how wide you are. This would be far better off with less of a keyhole and a bigger bed in the back, but it's shielded. You know, it's sitting on what appears to be a perfectly good planter bed with all of the wood chips in there. So this thing's got a whole lot of potential going on, and it's protected. Look, I mean, it's got the trellis or the chicken wire in the back, so it's protected from anything coming off that back wall.
Yeah, I know. Personally, I'm looking at it. I would say it probably needs to be at least the whole planter area needs to be a foot wider all the way around to give it more of an area for the biosoil to develop in there.
Right.
But it's a depth that is not too deep away from the soil. I mean, the earth soil itself for roots to get down into it, and so you're not having to bend over too far. But yeah, I kind of like the basic design of this one. But I like to have planters that are at least 4 foot wide to get it from both sides. That give you can reach out 2.5 feet, so you're overlapping a bit in the middle, getting to the plants and stuff.
Right, so you're past that 24-inch mark.
Yeah, this here looks like it's 36 inches wide only, so you can almost reach all the way across this.
Yeah, and that's going to have a freeze problem.
Yeah. All right, and okay, so Bigfoot and Lake Ferry came in. How you doing? All right, the next one here, we're going to talk about hugelkultur here, and so basically, I got 2 different slides on this. I forgot to stretch this one out. Crap. Okay. I forgot. I put the photo in and I forgot to stretch out the full of it. So it's not, okay. So it's harder to see. So piled logs in the bottom. Then it says 20% branches, sticks, Then you got 25% plant waste, grass clippings, leaves, kitchen scraps, etc. 10% compost, 5% soil on top. That's for a hugelkultur mound. And Ron, would you make any changes in this?
Yeah, oh yeah, I'd add a whole lot more soil to the top of that. Yeah. Not just 5%. I'd cover that entire mound with soil.
Yeah, I know. Howie would probably add about 6 inches of soil out on the sides and up over the top and down the other side too. Hey, Jay.
I think he'd follow more of the pathway garden where he would bury those logs.
Yeah, dig down.
And let Mother Nature get a hold of those big logs and bring everything in.
Yeah, so you dig the hole to put the logs in and then build the other stuff up, and then that dirt you dug out would go up on top to be your topsoil on it. All right, next one here. Another one I forgot to make the full size on here. So they're taking one of these metal planters type things here. It looks like this one does not have a bottom in it, which is good. But what I don't like about it is on this one here. So you start out with your, this one says step 1, put down layers of cardboard on the bottom. That's fine. On cardboard, I have a pet peeve about cardboard. Oh, Ginger Ninja just came in. Hi, Ginger. A lot of people don't realize that the cardboard that is good for your garden is plain brown cardboard. Not the stuff with ink on it, not the waxy stuff that you get in some of the vegetable boxes for, you get from the groceries, from like a Costco or Sam's Club, the ones that have kind of the waxy film on them. You don't want to, you want to just use plain brown cardboard with as little printing on it as possible for lettering. You don't want to have the whole picture plastered on the sides. You don't want to use that at all, because that puts other chemicals into the ground. You don't want.
Yeah, you got to watch how rigid the boxes are too. You almost want a flimsy box.
Yeah.
Because if it's got too much glue, nothing's getting through that, and the organic life is done.
Yeah. All right. Then you got your step 2 is putting down it says 40 to 50% of wood matter, from the bottom up. Then it has your about 20% of plant waste and kitchen scraps, lawn clippings and stuff. Now it gets the one that Ron and I are both going about in here beforehand. This dark brown, this dark blackish layer here.
No.
It says about 10% of compost mixed with cheap soil.
No. There's too many unknown factors. Yes, Freaky Geek, cardboard is not equal.
Yeah. Yeah. So cheap soil is, this is for your garden. You don't want to use cheap soil. You want, it's just cheap. I hate that cheap soil.
You're better off building your own with an in-ground compost pile. Yeah. And build your own soil.
Yeah. And the top it says 25 to 30% good quality organic mixed soil.
So your base roots on a plant, okay, are going to be that 12 inches or so, right? And then the rest of your root base is supposed to go deeper into all this unknown. And some of these roots have been measured at 19 feet, 20 feet. Yeah. Do you really want to cut them off this way? I'm not knocking hugelkultur, but when you start adding in cheap soil, unknown factors, soil, what are you bringing in?
Yeah. All right. So the next slide, let's go back over to slide. The next one here. All right. You said you know this guy.
Yep.
So
a lot of us do. He's from New Zealand, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And he has been perfecting this for years and years and years. This is built with a hugelkultur ditch underneath it. And then this was placed down. Now, yeah, he's made some mistakes. And he himself, in explanation about this, has stated that this design is a bad design because of the way it comes apart. That's why he went to the metal boxes, which work for him in the same way this worked for him, except they don't freeze. The center core of those metal rings do not freeze.
Yeah. Now,
he's in his grow season right now, this time of year, when we're in our cold season. So he's putting out a lot of videos right now about stuff he's got going on.
Yeah. And one of the things talking about the design here on it, one of the things that my brother and I learned many over 35, 30, 40 years ago. Yeah, 40 years ago. I'm just doing I'm getting friggin' old. When we started building these for my mom and my grandmother, we did it like this with the post on the inside of the first ones we built. Never again. What we would do, rather than have the post on the inside, we have our long boards, put the posts on the outside. Then the short width, we'd run the board out out to the outside edge of the post, and we would actually bolt it together. Because what happens with this is when you have the post and the board up against it on the inside, so the post is inside of it, water can get between the two. And what's it going to do to the screws and or nails? It's going to rust them off, and all of a sudden your boards are going to start falling off. That's why I tried to put the posts on the outside and bolt it together. So that's it. Hey, Laura, Hedgehog's Homestead is here. So, but what I like here, if you look back here behind it, the soil back here, he's got piles of stuff, and it's all breaking down. It's growing good soil, and this looks really nice. And once again, the wider it is, not the long, how wide it. If it's the wider it is, the less it's going to have a chance of freezing in the middle in the northern regions. All right, let's go to the next one here. All right, we're back to this one here. So yeah, you can get logs, branches and stuff, and create your own raised planter bed. You can line it with a visqueen, or it looks like this guy got some sort of dimpled plastic material, and just put the sheets on the inside to protect the logs from rotting, breaking down. But Ron, you had some concerns about the soil outside of it.
Well, yeah, look how trampled it is. Look, I mean, both in the thing and outside the thing look like they're heavy clay. They look like they've been overdone and overworked. You're not growing soil in these situations. The other side of that is you're killing your organic life that gives you the ability to bring minerals in from, look at this vegetative field right next to him that's growing hog wild just outside the fence. There is tons of organic life underneath there that cannot reach this bed to assist it and bring in minerals.
Yeah. So, not only is your what you put in your bed and how you treat your bed, it's the soil around it as well. It needs to be, you need to keep it up and going too. What my wife has done in our garden in California there still, where she's still at till she retires, that area, that bare dirt all around it, probably have 2 or 3 inches of straw spread out on it and leaves and stuff. So there's life growing in there and helping the ground around it to grow. All right, the next one here. All right, for those of you trying to do things on the cheap, here's some cheap raised planter beds for you. These are pallets. And this whole area here was this was part of their garden area. They put down all the bark and stuff, built the pallets, put them in there, and then started dumping the dirt and stuff inside. They did line the sides, not the bottom, the sides with some visqueen to retain moisture and to keep the soil from eating away at the wood of the pallet. But yeah, it has access to the earth down below. So, and they got different sized ones here. And some of these, this one back here. I mean, you look at some of these things growing in here, and it's doing fairly well. I see some cabbage in there, which is usually hard to grow. Looks like they got some lettuces growing and onions in amongst all the stuff here. And they got flowers in amongst it too. Now, Ron, this may not be your area, but if you had something like this, what flowers would you be planting with your food?
Oh, the smallest, like marigolds.
Okay.
Because you want to continue to attract bees the entire grow season. If you get a stall between what is harvestable and what you're beginning to grow, and you've got that gap and you lose the bees, you're done for. You've got to have, and this is where this guy could have done better with his pallets. He could have just as easily turned those center sections and those ribbing sections into strawberry beds, and given himself a whole secondary fall harvest with a lot more flower growth, and kept those bees all season long.
Yeah.
That's another one of those things people talk about is, what should I grow? Well, it's all season. You want flowers coming in at all times of year, never going away, so that you don't lose the bees. Once the bees run out of flowers, they don't come back. They find no more flowers and go somewhere else.
Right.
So you want flowers all year long. So don't just plant your garden thinking, oh, I'm going to have this harvest, and this harvest, and your flowers are seasonal.
Yeah.
You're going to lose all your bees.
One of the things it just dawned on me, and I'm kind of embarrassed that I didn't think of this earlier, because my mom and I both love nasturtiums.
You're right, Caitlin.
They could plant in it down in the bottom here, in the bottom pocket, nasturtiums and let it grow up over and hang out over the top and still hang down. And you got nasturtiums are edible, and they draw bees.
Right. Use every square inch. Don't skip a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly and that's why they lined the inside with plastic, was to keep the moisture in the dirt in the soil from rusting out the screws and the nails and stuff in them.
Well, plastic's going to do a couple of different things. It's going to protect you from any potential chemicals. It's going to protect you from any rust. It's also going to make the pallets last that much longer. Now, I'm not advocating that you build these things and instantly line them with plastic. There's an organic breakdown that is happening along those edges of those beds that's actually going to improve the soil.
Yeah.
When you use a exposed wooden walled planter box. So there's pluses and minuses to using wood. Plastic is not necessarily always the right way to go.
Yeah. I'm going to talk on that too. Tim asked the question, will the mulch around the beds prevent soil packing?
No. It'll improve it, but every time you walk on it, you're packing the soil.
Yeah.
Without living material there, it's not going to break up as easily.
Right. Okay. And what's interesting is my wife, for all around her walkways, she has a bunch of plants growing in her walkways. And one of the biggest things she has growing in her walkways is strawberry plants. They naturally, they grow up and it sends out a runner, and I'll let that one go. And after 4 or 5 runners, she'll take one, put one in a pot, and then she'll harvest that one and move it elsewhere. But there are a lot of plants you can have growing around there that roots will go out and break it up, and will help keep the soil from packing. Shoot, now I just forgot the other thing I was going to say. Brain fart here. All right, I'm not sure. Was it Kathy at North Star Prep Center, I believe it was talking about this? When you build a new planter, if you're not lining it, she said one of the best things to do is get like a torch, a propane torch, and burn the wood a little bit.
Seal it up.
Yeah, and basically it's not. This is not the right word. It caramelizes the surface of the wood.
In essence.
Yeah. And so it makes the wood last longer.
Well, like I said, it's got its pluses and minuses, because the organic life that we're talking about that is so important in all of these, you're giving them a place to live. You're giving them a place to call home, not necessarily in the soil, but in the wood. They're going to be in there in that wood. And if a mineral is found in that wood that the plant needs, it's that much easier for it to get it there. Yeah. So it deteriorates the wood and it breaks it down. It composts it in a sense. So it's pluses and minuses. Yeah. It's if you're 50 years old and you're building these things, okay, 10 years or 5 years from now, it's not going to be that big a deal for you to replace them. If you're 55 and 60, line it with plastic. Yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah, because you're not going to be rebuilding these things in 5 years.
Yeah. One of the things, though, when we lived in California, people built their planters. Some of them, I'm going to jump back here, and actually, I'll go back. You saw the pictures before of people using 2x6s, the Doug fir 2x6s and stuff. Yeah. Those things go away quick.
Yes.
The next ones people built a lot of them there in California out of was cedar. Lasts a little bit longer. The ones that lasted 10 years, 15, up as long as 15 years was the rough redwood boards, not the nice smooth ones, the rough redwood ones, the ones that are really 2 inches thick.
Yeah, rip cut, right.
And the redwood lasts longer than anything else in a raised planter bed.
Oh yeah.
And so, but out here in Idaho, they got to truck it all the way from California and Oregon out here, it costs a lot more.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah. So I agree with you, Christy. Can't stand rocks in growing beds. Redwood it's a semi-soft, semi-hard. All right. It depends on the cut of the wood. If you get some good heart, what's called redwood heart, that stuff can be as hard as a horror's heart when you try to nail into it. The outer areas of the from the tree is softer. So it depends what part of the tree it's cut from. All righty. So Howie's throwing out some information there. He's saying redwood's a softwood, like I said, but it depends what part, because redwood trees, you're talking trees that are, 5 foot, 10-foot diameter, not like the 16-inch ones you have for your firs and a lot of your pines. And so, the closer you are to the core or the heart of the tree, the harder that wood is. All righty, let's go to the next slide here. So, what someone has done with some of the pallets, rather, they've done high and low planter beds. The big ones here, they lined it with the plastic, and these other ones here are, no filter fabric, no weed blocker, nothing on the bottom. So these are at least are going to have access to the soil. And I like that they got a compost barrel here. They're showing, and then in the background, you can see it. They got the water troughs. Whether or not they put big holes in the water troughs so the roots can go through or not, I don't know. But so there you can make your raised planter beds look artistically nice without cutting them off from the earth. I hate this.
This has nothing but problems written all over it. This would be a good compost bin.
Yeah, but the problem is still the worms aren't going to want to be in there to help the composting. They're going to want to vacate.
Yeah, they're going to look for every way to get out of that.
Yeah. Problems. If you're in anywhere but Florida or Southern California, you got to worry about the temperature freezing this. Even if you only get a couple of days of freezing weather, this is going to freeze all the way through. It's just like what Ron was saying. This is more like a pot that is worse than a pot. It is totally cut off from the ground so bad. I mean, you're gonna be spending most of your time every year digging it out, revitalizing it, adding more stuff into it, and it's going to be more work than it's worth. I just don't like these ones that are up off the ground quite a ways that you can't work with. Ron, your opinion? Anything else?
It's terrible. It's just there's nothing good about that box whatsoever. That would be it. I mean, if you were just going to be moving it around the yard and using it to start plants, okay, because the only valuable thing on that thing is probably the first top 6 inches. So it'd be a good plant starter, and you'd be able to work with them easier. But no, that's terrible.
All right, got a couple more people came in here. We got a Peculiar People and Idaho Garden Girl. Hey. All right, so let's go to the next one here. Now, these are more of a pot than a raised planter bed. Yeah. I have some of these, but mine are just temporary until my wife gets up here and decides where we're actually going to put the garden. Now, a couple of ones I have are been cut like this, about this height here, are going to be, because we have unless we get a wall of peony put in where we have an orange tree that can grow year round out, in the Wallapini. What we're thinking of doing is put an orange tree and a lemon tree where I can take the tractor, pick it up, move it into the shop in the wintertime so it doesn't freeze. But the problem is it's going to be a lot of work keeping that soil mineralized, healthy, and everything else on it. It's it's a pot, basically.
Yep. No.
Yeah. So
they'd be great compost bins.
Yeah.
Set up like that. They would be great compost bins.
And as a compost bin, it's good for something else because they got the drains here on them.
Yep, compost tea.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I actually created one by accident last summer. I mean, because I was getting in a hurry. And the last one I did, the tractor dug up a lot of the scraped up all the cow poo from the cows that were here before and just dumped it straight in. I got tired of mixing the soil, and filling some of mine. And the timer stayed on too much. It started to float the soil out. And so I drilled the bottom. Oh man, I had the richest compost tea coming out.
Yes, you did.
It was manure tea coming out of there. And the other plants and the other ones that had good drainage and stuff absolutely loved it. But so these, now there is something you can do with these, and that's what the next slide shows. But before I go to the next slide, you can cut. These things are usually, trying to think how tall these are about, because there's a 275 gallon ones and the 330 gallon ones.
Yeah, 5 and 6 feet tall.
The 275 are about from the bottom, not the bottom of the whole thing, but from the bottom of the plastic to the top are approximately 3.5 feet tall. The 330 gallon ones are about 4.5 feet tall. But I have a couple of these that I cut off at this first.
See, Howie.
Hey, Howie, take care. This first bar here going around it here, you can see my cursor moving. The first bar up, I cut a couple off that I was going to use for onion and garlic beds. And I did the same thing at the top. With the middle section in between now, what I had cut out is about twice as tall as this thing is. And it's a great planter bed. In fact, that it doesn't rot.
Right.
It will last 20 years easy. And it's open at the bottom, open at the top. And you can, when you do it around and you cut the cage and everything else, if you're worried about, the top's going to be sharp, well, get some 2x4, get someone has a table saw, notch that 2x4. So you cut like 3/4 of an inch by inch. Sorry, for 3/4 of an inch by 1.5 inches to 2 inches out of it. And so it's like a big L, and you just put it on the outside edge and just screw it together going around, and you got a nice safe lip on the top. Hey, Purple Tea Bear. So, if you get some of those IBC totes and you want to use them as a raised planter bed, just cut the top off, the bottom off, and on the ground, and it works. It'll work just great for a raised planter bed that won't rot out on you. And I think that's the last slide I have. Yeah.
Now, some people were talking in the side chat, and wow, there's so many things to address. Frozen compost piles, cover them with black fabric to heat them back up. They've stalled and froze. It doesn't matter what part of the country you're in. They just need to be restarted or reheated. Once you bring that heat level back up over 50, the microbial life will take off again, and the heat will start rising once again. What was the other thing? Oh, cinder blocks. When you're building these big bins and you don't have enough stuff to put in the bottom, enough trees, logs, branches, compost, miscellaneous, and you're worried about not bringing your soil up high enough, you can use cinder block, broken cinder block. It's porous. It has holes in it. You don't want the cement slab that is like from your driveway that is perfectly smooth or supposed to be perfectly smooth. You want something porous like a sponge that supports microbial life, that will allow the microbial life to go bonkers in there and live in that stone, live in those cinder blocks. So that's actually a good idea. You just got to watch that you don't build a floor. You want the things all messed up and crooked in there, because the microbial life over time will break those down and pull the calcium out and feed that calcium to the plants. It's going to take a couple of years, but it will happen.
Yeah. And that's the things you got to realize. There are several different types of, quote, cinder blocks. There are the cinder blocks, and then there are some ones that are made just like that are cement blocks. And depending on what they make them out of, yes, they have they'll have some calcium in it. They'll have some lime in it, and some other things. But sometimes you got to be careful, because sometimes some of the chemicals they use, because there's no set requirement on what you can put in those.
Right. And never get colored blocks.
Yeah. And sometimes what will happen is you'll get some that actually it leaches things out as it does the chemical reaction, as the cinder blocks will slowly break down. Also, depending whether or not your soil is alkali or acidic, depends how the cinder blocks react as well. All I know is here you can go from California. In California, when a cement truck is out working and they wash out at a construction site, they have to have a catch basin set up with plastic, a big area where they can wash out and trap that water. So that
you're in Ohio too.
Yeah. So any of the stuff in the cement being broken up loose doesn't get into the soil, because it can cause real soil damage.
They call it a leach pond here.
And
it's very temporary.
You pour a cement sidewalk is different than rinsing out a wheelbarrow and having that water carry all the different components out into the soil down into it, because it'll poison the soil at the intensity of it, kill off a lot of the worms and stuff until finally it all breaks down. So, I'm personally, I'm a little leery of using cinder blocks. One of the other things you can do, like if your soil, you don't have enough soil to put in there and you want to build it up a little bit, but you don't want to break its contact with the earth, get some like I did for my things. I did a video on it last summer where I took milk cartons, took some of the Gorilla Glue, and I glued the lid on it so the air would not escape from it. And you can put some of those along the edge there to take up space, and then when you have more soil to put in, you just dig down, pull those out, and just add your soil to it. So you can recycle, big 2-liter bottles, the milk jugs, the big juice bottles and stuff. You can seal those things up, and heck, you could even just fill it full of water so that it doesn't crush down in, and use that to displace soil area. Don't line the entire bottom. Do around the edges to bring your soil level up, and then later on, when you have more soil and more compost to add to it, just dig those out, pull it out, and put the good compost down in the hole. All righty, let's see. I want to go to one other point here for those that haven't seen it, and give me a second here to bring it up here. I forgot to set this up beforehand, and I apologize. The Green Wizard's Guide on Amazon here. Boom. There we go. If you are a beginner, if you are an experienced, you are a long time one still struggling, get this book. I've read it at least 4 or 5 times so far here. It's Ron's book here. I did not get one for free. I bought my own to support Ron. The paperback is $13.95. The Kindle, buying the Kindle one is $7.95. If you have Kindle Unlimited, right now it's free on Kindle Unlimited, but that's not going to last forever. So,
Yeah, there's some states actually fighting back against that right now.
Yeah. So, get the paperback one. I know Dave at Southern Ohio Prepping has bought a couple of them, and friends keep borrowing it, and he's I got to buy another one now. But it's great. It's funny. It's intense learning. It's great. So much stuff. It's mind opening. Go ahead. Shout out. Talk about it.
Yeah, and that's where some of you that say, well, I've got a brown thumb, or I can't grow anything, or I can't. This guide is written for 10 to 90-year-olds to get the understanding of the organic life and what's really going on. And it's not about feeding your plants. It's more so about getting the soil to release what's actually there to the microbial life that actually feeds the plant. When the scientific studies are done, they're finding that it's the microbial life that's feeding the plant, not the plant actually coming in contact with a mineral. It's digested by one, then delivered to the other in exchange for sugar. And a lot of you that know composting know that sugar fires the compost and gets that thing cooking. It works the same way in your garden. When the microbial life is kicking, your plants take off because it goes out and brings back the minerals that the plants actually is calling for. Green Wizard Guide teaches you how to do that. Teaches you my mistakes so that you don't make them, and then it gives you all the right answers.
Oh, and he puts his mistakes in there before he learned what to do. And the way he words it is absolutely, I was just laughing so hard sometimes because I actually saw myself in there a couple times.
Yeah, last time I was here, we sold 55 or put out 55 of the free Kindle copies, and that's great. Eventually that's going to come around and pay for itself the way Kindle sets it up. Until the last page is read in the book, I don't see a dime.
Yeah.
But that's fine. The problem is that also says they're tracking you that closely, that they're tracking every single page that you read of any book on KDP or Kindle.
Yeah.
Okay. That kind of spooks me a little bit. That also makes me wonder if they turn the grid off, they turn the system off, you just lost the book. You just lost access to that information that could help you.
If you're on Kindle Unlimited, if you buy it on Kindle and you download it, don't keep it on the web, you download it to your device, then it's on your device. Because I've gone totally off grid areas where up at Scout Camp where I don't have anything and I still read my books. But only if I downloaded it to the device.
Well, thank you, Idaho Gardening Girl.
Yeah.
You'll have to speak up one of these nights and let me know what you think.
All right. The other, I froze.
Yep.
In the back of the book, you left several blank pages.
Throughout the book.
Yeah, throughout the book for people to make notes.
Yes.
Yeah, and so and you reference some of your videos for them to go watch and see stuff so they can make notes from it.
Well, my videos on the Green Wizard channel refer back to the blank pages in the book so that you can either take the notes and put them in the book, or you can keep your own notes and keep track of what you're doing.
Okay.
Because a lot of times what you're going to find, especially if you use the Green Wizard's Guide, the stuff that you do this year, starting your garden or bringing your garden up to speed and making it lightning fast, you don't have to do next year. So you might actually want to keep track. And like I said earlier, tomatoes reveal things wrong in the soil first. They're the first ones to respond to water conditions. They're the first ones to respond to sunlight conditions. They're the first ones to respond to mineral deficiencies, calcium deficiencies, any number of things. And if you just pay attention to your tomatoes, it can tell you when it's time to go back and follow the guide again and help your soils. If you're truly following the guide and taking care of the yard around the garden, you don't need to worry about getting back into the bed to change things. It's going to adjust itself and fix itself.
Yeah. And so, some of the things he addressed in here are terms people may not recognize. The food web, the soil web. I was trying to remember some of the things that you had mentioned before on it. Soil layering. Basically, you're feeding the soil, so the soil feeds the plant. And unfortunately,
You're
a lot
feeding
of
the microbial life in
so
the
the
soil.
life, yeah.
Okay.
And
This is where people really get messed up. And I'll try and make it really, really simple. Clay, then soil, then topsoil. Topsoil has the most abundance of organic life, has the most abundance of dead organic material. Soil has organic life in it, but not as much organic material. When it lacks in everything and lacks in both of those, and those are tremendous, huge fields. There's so many different living organic material and dead organic life. It's huge. Millions of things are involved here. Literally millions. Every footfall on your yard has potential to kill millions of life forms. Regardless of that, when you have a lack of all of that, you have clay. As soon as you start bringing back the organic life, the organic material, roots, and what have you, clay starts becoming soil again, then becoming topsoil. They've gone out and they've tested at abandoned farms for 60, 70 years, and they're finding 16, 19, 20 feet deep of nothing but topsoil, where these farms have not been touched in all these years. Nothing's been done to them. Mother Nature does it that way. We're the ones screwing it up. We're the ones causing the clay problem, and we can reverse it. The solutions are in the book, as Jerry would say. You know, Jerry, we talked about him the last time, and I haven't heard from him, but Jerry's one of my biggest supporters, yet hates me to death because once he treated his yard, he actually had work to do and burned up a bunch of mowers, and but everything in his yard came back, and he was dealing with the clay issue extremely bad. Every time they called for a big rainstorm in North Carolina, he had to worry about flooding in his basement and had to stay up all night just in case so that he could contend with it and deal with it. Once he started using the Green Wizard's guide, within weeks, the next rainstorm came in, he didn't see a drop of water. No moisture got into his basement. Once the soil starts to become alive again, water retention is there. Water storage is there. That's what the microbial life lives in, is that water storage. The guide gives you the ways to do that for yourself. You're not watering your gardens because the microbial life is storing it for your plants.
Yeah. Brain fart here. When you have when you lay out the branches, the boards and stuff, and you have some leaf covering, you get the white stuff growing on it. It's breaking it down and transferring. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Shoot.
The mitochondria?
Yeah. So, that's, you want to make sure that's living and growing in your soil, because that's sort of, I'm trying to, Dave, I guess it was how many days.
But that's just one of the elements.
Yeah. That's sort of like a trucker delivering a bunch of nutrient stuff from one side to the other and moving stuff around.
Right. And like mushrooms, you see mushrooms growing in your yard. That's a great sign. That's mycelium. Like Howie was saying, if you're going to be building a hugelkultur bed and you're going to be doing a lot of compost, one of the main things you want to do in there is throw in and inoculate your new soil with active mycelium from your area. In other words, get your own compost running and put that in with your soil. Regardless of the stuff you throw in to be compost, you want active compost or active mycelium going into your garden to get that thing started.
Okay. Now, last time you were on here a couple weeks ago, we talked about the minerals and stuff that need to make sure it's in your soil, because the commercial crap we get at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever you said it only has like 19 or something, or you said it had only so many minerals and stuff in it that they put in the fertilizer you buy.
The NPK process.
Yes, exactly. The NPK, which is the nitrogen.
Prepping for eternity. Hold on, I'll answer that.
Yeah. Nitrogen.
The NPK process.
Yeah, process.
I'm not knocking it. Okay. And Fat Man is prepping us here. He can support this. I'm not knocking the NPK process. It has taught us a tremendous amount of things that we can use and be useful with.
But it doesn't bring
everything. The problem lies in the NPK process, or let's just call it the big box store process of your fertilizers, your minerals, and what have you. It's only going to give you 12 minerals.
That's it, 12
in
minerals.
All of your plants. 12 vitamins and minerals. When the human body and all living bodies on our planet actually require 90.
Yeah.
And you're going to short your garden and short the system and only give it 12 using store-bought NPK processed fertilizers.
Yeah.
Just ask yourself that same question. Do I want the 90 or do I just want 12? I mean, if you want to just keep eating Fritos the rest of the day, that's your call. Okay. Me, I'll go eat a steak.
Mm-hmm.
Grass-fed steak is probably a whole lot closer to that 90 that I need versus a Frito. Just saying.
Yeah. All right. I'll try to find something here real quick. Now, one of the things that it's out again. It's still out. I was just checking something on Amazon. I've been trying to get the organic green sand to to help add the extra minerals to my soil here, but they're still out of it on that. Now, one of the problems I have with my non-garden area is, we have a lot. The new place we bought has a big lawn area, and the guy behind me was getting all the fertilizer stuff from Simplot, and so he had nice green grass and stuff, but he had and he sprayed every time the dandelions came up.
No.
And last year I did. We had so many dandelions, and when you said that we needed, it was dandelions provide calcium.
Yes. They're going in to the clay bed and bringing calcium up to the surface.
Yeah.
Because your soil is lacking calcium. That's why dandelions do so well. Add calcium and watch. You're not going to have dandelions next year.
All right. So I went to, last week, I went to Home Depot because they said they had it.
And he froze.
I got 3 25-pound bags of gypsum.
Okay.
All right. And it says, going by the amount of space it has, okay, I'll take care of it. It'll leave me about 5 pounds left over that I can, use for, over in the garden area stuff, my stuff to help that.
Around the garden. Don't put it in it. Put it around it. If it needs it, the mycelium network will go get it and bring it back. Okay. Don't put it in the garden.
Right. So, so this spring, as soon as the snow melts, I'm going to get out the little walk behind thing that throws all the stuff out and just spread that all over the lawn. And hopefully some of that will get carried back over to the garden area as well. And we'll see, hopefully we don't have 20 million dandelions coming up in the lawn, and my grandkids can go out there and play.
Okay. Prepping for eternity. You've had two different questions. I wanted to get back to the first one more so. Yes, the book discusses minerals. I actually list all 90 essential minerals. It takes a couple of pages, but they're all listed. There's another one I've come across called Bloomin' Minerals. I'm trying to find a solid source. I know Longevity carries them, but I want the 55-pound bags at a better price, not the Longevity sales price. I'm looking. So when I find it, I'll let everybody know. What was her question?
I'm going back. All right, that's his question. That was his other statement. So his first one was the one about the minerals in the book. The one before it was this here. And going back up, looking more prep for eternity.
Okay, you're talking about testing your soils. Okay. There's a book, and I list the book in the Green Wizard's Guide, and it's Understanding Weeds. Weeds will talk to you. Weeds will tell you what's going on in your fields and in your soil and what's in demand. Now, understand, weed seeds only germinate under the right soil conditions. If it's too acidic, weeds won't come up. If it's too neutral, they won't. There's a balance in there. And the reason I say that, and I give the example in the book with the exact locations and information, there was a weed that popped up in Scotland of a plant that had not been seen and was thought extinct for over 200 years. And all of a sudden in this golf course, this weed popped up and took off like crazy because the soil conditions had gotten so poor that weed seed that had been in the ground for over 200 years came back to life. Okay.
Yeah.
In the book, I give you nature's source for a weed killer. It dehydrates and kills all weed seed on contact. This is why I can say when you build a garden and you follow the Green Wizard's Guide, not only am I telling you always, always, always have your soils covered, whether you're throwing down hay in the winter or whether you're growing crops in the summer, never have exposed soil. This particular substance goes in on top of that. Not only is it a weed killer, it's a nitrogen booster in 6 weeks' time. So everything is going to take a pop and jump in 6 weeks' time unexpectedly because this stuff does both. It's a weed and feed. Interesting that Chemlon came along and some of these Scots and some of these other ones came along with exactly the same terminology when Mother Nature actually gave us one.
Yeah. All righty. We're coming up here where we need to wrap it up here.
Alrighty.
I just need to.
I'll start your questions quick before we disappear.
All right.
He's going to kick us to the curb, buddy.
Post your questions really quick here, and any other questions while you're posting it. Tomorrow night on Gray Man Prepping, my other channel, we're going to be talking about for Tactical Tuesday, paper and plastic goods to save water. Basically talking about if all of a sudden there's a shortage of water, you don't want to be washing dishes, you don't want to be, so ways, things you can use to help save water by stockpiling them in your preps and stuff beforehand. All right, just waiting to see any more questions pop up. The other thing, for those of you that are members of Wide Family Farm, members only post tonight. Let's see what it says here. Members only chat starts in 14 minutes for Wide Family Farm. So Kaylin, Christy, a bunch of others over there, Digs Outdoor, Gear Grinding. I'll see you guys over there in 15 minutes.
Kaylin, your biggest issue with you being up on a deck like that, up on a balcony, your biggest issue is making sure that you have enough mycelium, enough organic life growing in that soil. One of the secret tricks that is listed for a totally different thing in the book can also be used in your situation, and that is dairy milk. You can apply a thin layer, a thin coating of a 50-50 mix of dairy products. I'm saying all of them because each one is going to break down its own way and increase the microbial life in your soils and give you a huge boost. Now, without the worms, that's one problem. That's just an aeration thing. You, with a pot or a little planter, you can always be out there with a stick punching holes in it every once in a while just for aeration purposes and water storage purposes. It's having that microbial life in a concentrated area and keeping it thriving. And by constantly either feeding it or putting new microbial life in that soil, you're going to increase your production tenfold. Granted, it's going to break down your soils. It's going to break down because it's going to be pulling every mineral it can find. Again, minerals listed in the book. It's going to be breaking every one of those down that much faster in a smaller concentrated area. So if you can keep up the mineral count and you can keep the microbial life going, everything is going to work in your favor minus the worms.
And she was asking, can I use yogurt?
Yes. Yes. Any dairy product will break down. Now, your neighbors may not like you.
Yeah. Milk spread out on the surface has a tendency to stink.
Yes, but that's the microbial life going to work.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that's going to saturate into the soil and start breaking down the minerals and feeding your plants. The only microbial life that's going to survive in that soil is the stuff that comes in contact with your plants that follows the instructions and is given the sugar that your plants put out in exchange for the minerals that they are demanding. There's an exchange network there. Just like in Avatar, and they talk about the entire planet being a huge network, the mycelium network in this situation, and I'm bringing that down as vague as I possibly can when it's a huge, huge amount of life forms. The only ones that are going to survive are the ones in contact with your plants following the instructions and getting the sugar they need to survive. Absolutely. Milk in a compost pile? Absolutely. Milk, butter, eggs, any number of those things.
I was thinking, all that government cheese, get some of the government cheese and toss that into your soil.
I think I'd shred it a little bit and spread it out a little. I wouldn't throw the whole block in at one time, but yeah, I understand.
Yeah, just run it through a chipper shredder. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up here. I know Courtney's expecting me over there too. So as always, everyone, check out the Green Wizard. All right, his channel. He's got a lot of information. Get the book if you don't have it. It's well worth it. It's a great investment. Well worth it. And as always, stay happy, stay safe, stay prepared, keep adding to your preps, and keep building your garden. All right, folks? And we will see you around next week.
Have a good one, everybody.